take this pile of parts and turn it into a 1926 runabout. Now, I will tell you, this car is highly modified. Do not try this at home. So let me introduce you. We've got Scott, Mike, Steven, I don't know this guy. Jerry. Don, and Ron. My name's Jerry, and I'll be the guy spitting on the microphone. All right, so we guarantee you we'll have this car up and running within 15 minutes. All right, you look like a good candidate, young lady. You're not going to steal my phone, are you?
No.
All right. Well, here, I'm going to let you hold that. That's my phone. So be careless.
You don't have Amazon right now.
So, wait a minute. All right, so if you'll push the start button whenever I say go, okay? All right, gentlemen, you guys ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1, go. All right. Now, about every minute, holler out where we're at, okay? Thank you. All right, so guys, this is a flathead 4-cylinder motor that has about 20 horsepower. It's about 166 cubic inches. Not very big. Most today's lawnmowers, anybody that has a riding lawnmower, probably has more horsepower than this.
Okay.
Now, while we've got it all exposed, the pedals that are on the back end of this engine, the one on the left is your gears. So that pedal controls your high and low speeds. That's all you get. Henry said we had a 3-speed car coming. That's because it had reverse. Now, that center pedal, left pedal rather, I apologize. If you push it all the way forward, that'll get you your low gear. Now, halfway between, 1 minute, halfway between all the way back and all the way forward is neutral. And once you release it all the way back, now you've got high gear and you can zoom down the back roads at about 35, 40 miles an hour. And I'm gonna tell you, it will go a little bit faster downhill with a tailwind. And it's scary. The pedal in the middle, you guys are never gonna believe this because you don't have any clue. That's reverse. Oh my goodness. What modern car today has a pedal for reverse? All right. So in order to get reverse though, you have to put the pedal on the left into neutral. And then you can push down on the pedal in the center. Now, the pedal on the right is your brakes. What's the pedal on the right of new cars? So the pedal on the right on these modern cars is your fuel, right? That's your gas pedal. So, I'm sorry, I got lost. So the pedal on the right is your brakes. Now this has a trans brake. In other words, this has bands that go around the shaft of the motor essentially. I'm going to oversimplify this. And so what happens when you push down on that pedal, it makes the band tighten up around the drum in the transmission. Now that's all fine and dandy, it's a great system, unless something goes wrong with your rear end or your drive shaft. Well, then you have no brakes, because the only thing stopping is the engine. Nothing behind it. Now they did remedy some of that. 2 minutes? 3 minutes. All right, you guys are slacking. All right, so this has, the Model T engine has no water pump, no oil pump, no fuel pump, and does not necessarily require a battery. The reason it does not require a battery is there's a hand crank up front that has a magneto. So once you crank the engine over by hand, it produces its own power. This is one of the only cars made that way. The reason it doesn't have an oil pump is because there are slingers with the magneto. So when that spins around, it throws the oil around inside the engine and creates lubrication. The water pump works off of thermal siphoning. 4 minutes, guys, 4 minutes. So the water pump works off of thermal siphoning. I'm sorry, no water pump. The radiator works off of thermal siphoning. How that works, it heats up in the bottom of the block of the motor and it boils over into the radiator. Once it boils over into the radiator, it filters its way down through cooling, forcing hot water back up and out. If you guys ever sit in grandma's house and see the old percolator coffee pot, that's exactly what that is. That's thermal siphoning. The reason we don't need a fuel pump is it works off of gravity, just like a lawnmower. So these are all gravity fed. And up until 1926, that could pose a problem, because the gas tank is underneath the driver's seat. 5 minutes, gentlemen. So with the gas tank being underneath the driver's seat, what if you come up to a really, really, really tall hill, steep hill, and you only had a half a tank of gas? And guess what? You're going to run out of fuel, because all that fuel then shifts to the back of the tank, and you're left high and dry. So to counteract that, in the day, you back up the hills when you were low on fuel. I know that sounds funny, but I've had to do it. And it works. Alright, let me get out of these guys' way. So, in 1927, when they stopped the production of the Model Ts, there were over 15 million Model Ts in the world. Matter of fact, the Model T, 6 minutes and counting, boys. All right, so the Model T in 1927, when the production ended, the Model T accounted for half, 50% of all the vehicles in the world. The exact number Ford says they produced is 15,006,033. Now, who here knows what automobile outproduced the Model T? Speak up, somebody.
Volkswagen, Beetle.
That's right, Volkswagen in 1974 finally outdid the Model T. This is the first all-terrain vehicle. These cars are made with Canadian steel. The body, the frame is designed to flex. So if you push down on the left rear, the right front comes up. There's been many occasions where someone has taken a Model T to a four-wheel drive exhibition where they do their flex, where how far they can get in their wheels to flex without getting the rear wheels off the ground. Model T's win several times over. Henry Ford started out building these cars. It took 11 man days. So about 2.5 days for 5 guys. So they were putting out 2 cars a week. 5 guys put out around 2 cars a week. Not too awful bad. Well, one day he went to a packing house, seeing how they were processing meat. I'm sorry? 8 minutes? Oh my goodness. Holy cow. All right, so here he is. He's in a packing house watching them process meat. One guy stands one place, does one job all day long. He got a brainstorm. So he took and had a big guy, big old group. They took a frame and started pulling it to the shop and got it to where they could assemble the car. Just one guy pulling it through. By the end of the run, they had it down pretty close, pretty slow, or pretty good time. Well, then he figured out, well, if he could put it on a machine and have everything run through and the guys do one thing So he went from 11-man days to 11-man minutes. So in other words, every 11 minutes, Henry Ford was pushing a car off of the line. When these things first come out, they were about $400. Now once the assembly line started, he took the touring car, which was about $400, $500. He would turn it down to $260 once he was producing this fast. He was the first man to